Welcome to Get Career Curious, the podcast that gives you the inside scoop on careers, what it takes to get there, and what the job is actually like. In this episode, we're talking with my daughter, Lyla Hollis, who took a brave detour when her original college path didn't feel right. She spent a year in Costa Rica working in permaculture, found clarity through real-world experience, and eventually chose to finish her degree online while exploring new directions. We'll dive into how her AmeriCorps service opened doors to environmental justice work and how she landed a full-time clean energy specialist role before even graduating. So if you've ever thought about taking a gap year or wondered how a year of service might shape your future, this is the episode for you.
Hi, Lyla. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
So excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. So, Lyla, let's rewind. Now that you're a recent college graduate, can you reflect a little bit on when you first started college and what you were majoring in and why you chose that major?
Yeah. So when I first started college, I was playing volleyball and I wanted to be a biomedical student because I wanted to go into nursing. Hopefully my junior year, you have to get all your credits out of the way the first 2 years before you join into a nursing school. And I feel like I mainly did it just because my dad was a doctor. It's kind of the realm I grew up in. We went as a family on a couple mission trips that were medical focused, and I always saw him doing surgery and just kind of put those two together. I think it was just kind of more how I grew up was around the medical field.
So, at what point did you realize that nursing really wasn't your path?
Yeah, I got into the nursing school at UCCS here in Colorado Springs. I started doing the courses, and I kind of was at a transition period in my life in general. I just quit volleyball and kind of was, figuring out who I was as a person rather than being an athlete for so many years. And so I got into the school, started going to classes, and I just kind of realized that what I would have had to deal with as a nurse on a daily basis probably wasn't the best thing for me as a person. I mean, one of the first things that our professor said was you have to learn to not take things home with you. And I just thought about that. And I was like, if I had a patient that needed my help and I couldn't provide that, or I couldn't take that stress home, I just did not see that as something that I could do.
That would have been tough, especially knowing your personality. But a lot of students do feel pressure to stick with a major. You were 2 years into a biomedical science degree and then decided that really wasn't what you wanted to focus on. What fears were you feeling about making that change? How did you make the decision to move?
Definitely second guess my choices just because, you work so hard for those, 2 years for me. It was a lot of extra hours, but luckily 2 years in, it feels like, you're kind of stuck on a path, but really a lot of credits can transfer. I was able to keep 75 credits of mine transferred into my new degree. And so it wasn't that big of a deal. I think a lot of people get stuck in that mindset, oh, I can't go back or I can't change. But I think throughout your entire life, you're going to change. It's not going to be your degree. I mean, you're going to have to do that job for the rest of your life. So you need to like it and enjoy what you're doing. And I think you can always make changes.
Absolutely. And so when you decided to drop out of nursing school, you elected to do a gap year. And that was a complete change. Not only did you take some time off school, but you moved to Costa Rica. What did you do in Costa Rica and how did that kind of change your course?
Yeah, well, I have a big thanks to you because I'm not someone who likes to get out of my comfort zone. And so having my mom to push me to do it was a really awesome thing for me. And it really did change my life because it helped me decide what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. Our family friends have a surf camp in Costa Rica, and, they were just talking to my mom about, oh, would Lyla want to do this? And at first I was like, no, I don't want to move to a different country by myself and do that. But truly, it was so awesome. I went down there as just a volunteer, but I got quickly put into a permaculture program, which is really just learning how to be sustainable with the land. My main role was building a bunch of gardens alongside the surf camp, which would then provide food for all of the guests that attended the camp. And so it took 3 months, 8-hour days of just building from the ground up. And when I say that, I really truly mean it. It started off a patch of gravel, and it is now 4 flourishing gardens. I made organic soil. We had to do it all from scratch with the things around the property. It wasn't like we went to Home Depot and bought soil and put it in the ground. Like, we had to make our own soil and make our own garden. The fencing, we had to go and pick out all the plants that we wanted to put in it that would do best. And permaculture is really like, not to get too nerdy, but it's all about the different layers of how a natural ecosystem would be. You can grow a forest or like a ground floor shrubbery. Then you could have like a bush that's a little taller. Then you can have a tree, and they can all learn to grow in the exact same area. So you can really fill up that space and not, be using it for just one type of plant. So yeah, it was a really, really incredible experience for me.
So overall, what was your experience in taking a gap year when you're feeling a little lost on what to do next? How did your experience guide you?
Yeah, well, at first, when I started, I was like, holy moly, this is a lot of work. I mean, it's hot down there. You're doing a lot of manual labor. But I think the learning curve I had and just being in nature for 8 hours a day, I was literally foraging in the woods for things. And I kind of just had that moment of realization, like, I don't necessarily want to do this for the rest of my life, but I'm so passionate about the environment, the land, the connections I made with different people in Costa Rica that really made me rethink my whole career path and say, I'm really glad I didn't do nursing. It wasn't the right path for me. And now I'm learning so much more about myself just by taking that year of no school and just disconnecting from what I was doing, in the US.
And so when you came back to the US after your year in permaculture and learning about sustainability, how did your academic path change?
So when I was down there, kind of determined I didn't want to do nursing, obviously. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I kind of wanted to do an online version of school. I was a COVID freshman, so a lot of my classes were online already. I really enjoyed the in-person, but I also felt I could learn and do the same type of thing that I was doing in Costa Rica while attending school. And so I kind of made a decision to start looking up online programs, and Purdue Global came up as one of the, most accredited one. It's been around for a while. They're like, the professors have been teaching remotely for, years now. Way before COVID started, they were a university. And so I decided, let's see what environmental programs they had. And luckily they had environmental policy or sustainability. I'm not as much into the policy work. I do a lot of it now in my current role. So I think if I went and got a master's, I would probably do policy. But again, you can always change. And so I decided to stick with the sustainability path. It's a really broad topic. And so I knew I could do so many different things in that avenue. Because if you're stuck in environmental policy, you will be doing policy work, and you'll probably have to work for a governing agency, or you'll have to, if you do nonprofit work, it's just nice to have that background, but sustainability gives you a really broad way to be an environmental student and person in general.
So you chose to study online and you were a full-time student. And then at what point did you learn about AmeriCorps and choose to do that as well?
So when I was transitioning onto the online, I knew I wanted to continue working and keep getting that experience while I was in school. And I genuinely just started looking up online internships in Michigan, which is where I had been for the whole summer. And I just got online. Actually, I went on LinkedIn. I started just reaching out and emailing a bunch of different people and different organizations that aligned with kind of what I would want to try. And luckily, I got in touch with someone who ended up being my boss as an AmeriCorps. And she said, we don't have an internship, but there's an AmeriCorps program. And at the time, I had no idea what AmeriCorps was. I don't think it gets as much credit as it deserves. And I also think with the world we're living in right now, it's hard because you don't make a lot of money when you're an AmeriCorps member. It's really just to get experience. So anyway, it really just worked out. The pieces just started falling together for me, which is how I knew I was in the right spot in my life. And I really owe it to that one. Her name's Erica. I really owe it to her because she was like, hey, we have an AmeriCorps program and we need someone to be at our host site. Would you want to apply? So that was how I found that position.
And can you talk a little bit about what AmeriCorps is and what your role was as a volunteer?
Yeah, so it's a service term. So you don't say you're a worker. You are paid by the government. It's a federally funded program, and you are serving a community. And so my service was as a conservation coordinator at the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy. So you go into the AmeriCorps program in a specific focus area. So I did just an environmental steward. There's math. You could do teaching. There's actually a senior course. So if you're like 60 and above, you could do a service term. There's so many that I'm missing. I know one of my friends did one at a hospital. So if you were a med student, you could do an AmeriCorps service term. Yeah, it's really about serving your community. So willing to take a low paycheck because you are serving your community and doing something good, but you're also getting really, really good experience in that field. So, I mean, I went into it not even knowing if I would love what I did and want to keep doing that, but it's okay because it's a recognized service term. People know what an AmeriCorps member is. If you are an AmeriCorps member, there are networks of people out there who help you get a job after you're done with your service term. For instance, the nonprofit I was at ended up hiring like 8 of their AmeriCorps members, and now their full staff is like 50% AmeriCorps. So I feel like it's just one way to take a step towards the career you'd want to do. And it's very well recognized on a national basis because people understand that you are serving your community. They know you're willing to take a little bit lower of a paycheck to do something good and get that experience as a young adult.
And can you talk a little bit about what you did in particular in your service?
Yes, as conservation coordinator, I really worked with the volunteer coordinator, Erica, she was my boss. And I was at that host site for the full year doing work with volunteers. We had these things called work bees, which is like a 2-hour section of the day where you had volunteers come out to they have multiple properties across northern Michigan. And we would go out and do basically service of some sort. So we did invasive species removal. We planted native pollinator species that we actually grew from seed in our greenhouse at my host site. We did letter writing to donors. It was like a full array of things, but most of the time I was doing work outside. We also did like trail maintenance. We built trails. So it was just a fully outdoor, fun, interactive experience. It was very similar to what I did in Costa Rica, just a little more structured.
Yeah. And so I love that you built on those skills from Costa Rica and then took that to AmeriCorps. And how would you say that real life experience helped you with your studies? Because while you were doing this, you were also a full-time student as well.
Yeah, it was great. I say this all the time to people because a lot of times when I tell someone that I'm a fully remote student, they either say, wow, that's super cool, or, ooh, you miss out on so many things. And honestly, I felt kind of the exact opposite because I was able to write all of my papers on something I was doing in my real life job or service term. So, I can name so many assignments that I had to do, but I had to write a research paper on native pollinator species for a conservation class. And instead of having to go online and look up everything, I could speak on experience and then do further research that was meaningful to me and something I could bring back and talk to the staff about. Or, it just was a lot more hands-on and applicable to my everyday life, which I really appreciated as someone who doesn't really love the research side of things as much.
And I think that's something people miss out on a lot. Even as your mom, I was very hesitant about letting you do a fully online program because I was so worried you were going to miss out on the social aspect of learning. Yet you really actually proved my whole theory wrong because you got so much out of your education because you were also working at the same time. If there's students out there who are considering doing model like you chose to pursue, how did you balance the school and the work?
Yeah, you really just have to be disciplined, be a good planner. Like, you kind of do have to sacrifice sometimes Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. It just depends on your school load. Luckily, Purdue Global, honestly, I didn't have any tests. That was not a thing at the school, which is awesome for me because I am not a test person. I never have been. And so I would rather write a paper or research a little bit into something than take a, 100 question test that I have to do a ton of studying for. And so I just took, a couple hours out of my Saturdays to write my paper. Or after work, I would just know that I'm not a typical employee where I can go home and kick my feet up and I only work a 9 to 5. I did have to do some homework when I got home, but I'm a student athlete. I've always been one. It's not a huge sacrifice if you know your end goal, and it's only a few years of your life. I try to put that into perspective as well.
Right. And you are very passionate about the area you're working in and also what you're studying. So I think that definitely helped. So can you talk a little bit now? So many students are really struggling upon graduation to find a job. And what I thought was quite remarkable is that who were able to land a full-time job, like a dream job, without even having graduated yet. And that was in large part due to your work experience. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that transpired?
Yeah, this is just my opinion, of course, but I truly believe that as a society, employers are looking for experience over education. I'm not saying you shouldn't, you could get a master's level job without any education. I'm not saying that, but I think I had 3 internships before I graduated that showed that I knew what I was doing. For instance, I'm a clean energy specialist at a nonprofit in Traverse City, Michigan. And my boss, who at the time was interviewing me, she told me after the fact that the reason I got the job was because organizing, and I'll get into that a little bit later, that's the work I do, it's more activism based. That is a very niche job that you have to have good experience in. It's not something you learn from going to school. It's something you do when you're out in the world experiencing those feelings, that talking to different people, that connection. And so having those 3 internships under my belt was what made me stand out against master's level students. I'm not saying, just don't get a college degree, but if it's not for you and you have those internship abilities and you're able to be outgoing and I kind of emailed a million people saying, I really want a job. I really want to see what I like and see what I don't like. So can I please have a chance of interviewing, or if you have any positions that open, please let me know. I think just the initiative is what really matters to people, especially employers, because there's so many people with degrees.
Right.
I mean, there's lots of people. So
Right.
the experience and you're passionate and you show someone that you're passionate about it, they're more receptive to what you're saying.
Correct. And so you were able to manage both, finish your degree and working full-time as a conservation coordinator. Can you talk a little bit about what you do right now and who you work for and what that role entails?
Yeah, so I'm a clean energy specialist, and it's for a nonprofit called Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities. And we're based in Traverse City, northern Michigan. And my role specifically is to help expand solar. It's clean energy, but my focus is solar energy and just trying to expand our usage of solar in our community in northern Michigan. So I have a few service areas. I do a lot of work in Grand Traverse County, which is where I live. I go up to Sheboygan and Petoskey, which are up north. I do a little bit in Presqu'île and Marquette area, so up in the UP. But mainly, I work fully remote. I do have to be in the area because for instance, my first week of my job, I had to attend a public hearing about a big solar installation that was going in to Sheboygan County. And my job was to meet with the local township officials and kind of see where they were at with the policy. That's like where the policy work of my job comes in, is I have to be pretty knowledgeable about the different public acts, the different laws and ordinances that are happening in my community. So that way I can serve as a resource for those local government officials who need to vote on clean energy laws and have certain ordinances or county or township laws in place. And just being able to explain to them why it's so important that they vote yes for solar versus a coal plant, things like that. That's kind of my main role. And it's really a creative job. I didn't know I would be doing as much writing. I write a lot of like letters to the editor, op-eds, which are opinion pieces that you can submit to local news stations, and they will read it over, see if they like it, and then they'll publish it in a newspaper. And so I do a lot of writing about what I'm passionate about, which is something that was not in the job description, but something I do weekly at least. So it's kind of like a big, broad overview.
So when people hear activist, you start to think like it's very political, which it can be, but isn't it a lot of education, awareness building? Like, what are some of the awareness campaigns that you've worked on?
So it's kind of a little confusing because I had so many random internships before I got this main position, but I actually was a contractor, basically a consultant for this organization before I got my role in clean energy. So I was working on organizing and being an activist against a large oil pipeline called Line 5 that runs under the Straits of Mackinac. And it's just in a very ecologically vulnerable area of the Great Lakes. And so my main role was to, raise awareness, social media posts, going to in-person events. I did do one protest, but that says anything. I'm an activist and an organizer, and I've only gone to one protest. And it was a very peaceful protest. It was silent. We had shirts. We just walked through. They have a big policy conference on Mackinac Island every year, and it's funded by big oil companies. And so I was able to go with a group of 200 people who want to shut down Line 5. And it was very peaceful. We did a press conference. A lot of it is like, just go talk to your neighbor about something you care about and see how they react and how you can educate them. And also, I think it's like meeting them in the middle of where they are. If they're, more conservative minded and they're pro oil, that's okay. But you just have to kind of explain, we're all here on this earth. We have to respect the environment. How can we kind of meet in the middle on your views and my views? So it's a really like fun, creative way to connect with people on something you care about.
Something that I've seen you evolve in, and is that I would never have really described you as a super outgoing person.
No, that's true. I feel like I'm not super outgoing.
But you have gotten to be so eloquent about speaking about topics you really care about. And, public speaking was not something I don't think you ever aspired to do, yet you do it quite often now. Has your vision of yourself and your job evolved over the years that other people might be able to relate to? Like, you get something in your head about who you are, and how has that evolved for you?
Yeah, I definitely, when I started on the sustainability journey, I had no idea what I wanted to do in that area. And I feel like you just learn so much by trial by error, or whatever that saying is. But even my AmeriCorps term, like, I loved it. It was super awesome, but I could not see myself continuing another year of being outside 24/7, where it's like more of the manual labor. I knew I wanted to do something in the sustainability field, environmental activism. I cared about what I was learning about, but by the end of the year, I was starting to feel like I kind of want to move and do something different. And so, one, I think that's totally okay. And knowing yourself, and not everything that someone else loves. Like, for instance, my boss, Erica, was like, she loves her job and does it every single day. She's been doing it for 5 years and loves it, loves it, loves it, loves it. She did like trail crew in Colorado outside, building these awesome trails that people use every day. But for me, I knew I wanted to do something a little more activism focused, not to get too far into details, but 501c3s are a type of nonprofit that can't get into a political stance. And I work for a 501c3, but I am able to be a little more vocal about what I want and how to, get people to kind of tip the scale. And so solar for me was just something that I'm really passionate about and I'm still learning a lot about, but I didn't realize how much strain our grid has. You don't realize when you turn on the lights how much energy that takes. I just listened to a really awesome webinar on sustainable AI and how data centers are taking up way too much of our already fragile energy infrastructure in our country. And so it's okay to shift and evolve and learn new things every day. Like I love the job I'm in right now, but I can see myself doing other things later. So, it's like just finding that balance of what you want to do and going for it, I guess.
Yeah, you've definitely gone for it. And I mean, having just graduated from college and having really had 3 pretty productive internships has really helped to guide you to where you are today. So if someone was looking into a career in sustainability or environmental justice, what advice you have? Is it a growing field? What are your thoughts on the field?
I think we just need more people in the field of sustainability. Sustainability is such a broad word, but when you say it, most people understand that it is an environmentally charged degree. My concentration was environmental science as a sustainability major, but our world just needs it. We need more people who are activists for the environment, who take it seriously. And it's not even that you have to make it your whole career, but just I think we need more normal, everyday careers that have sustainability people or employees who can hold everyone accountable for the environment and speaking up for that as well. I mean, that's like what I do every day. I try to educate. I don't want to be that annoying person that's like, oh, don't use that. That's really bad for the environment. But we need more people like that. And you can do that in really any career. There's, you can be sustainable. And like, you wouldn't think AI needs to be sustainable, but it does. Like, or the way someone runs a business, you can be a sustainability consultant, which is something I kind of wanted to do at one point. But you go into like a furniture store. If you worked for a furniture company, you can help them be more sustainable in their packaging, in the way that they run things. Grocery stores. Meijer, which is the big grocery store chain in Michigan, has a sustainability program. They have lots of room for improvement. But again, that's where like people like me or you, whoever's listening, who wants to do something in sustainability, it doesn't have to be environmental activism. It can be so many different things. You can try to reduce the amount of plastic bags people use at the grocery store. You can try to say, hey, you need to be investing in local small businesses instead of mass produce from across, overseas. Yeah, it fits in with multiple areas of the job sector.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've watched you do that I found super interesting was just your kind of bridging different groups to learn about like how to use solar. Like you did the event for farmers in northern Michigan to understand how they could have animals and solar panels and be more sustainable, correct?
Yeah, that's one thing that people it's something I hear a lot in my job is, well, solar panels, especially utility sized, which is larger, like 100 megawatts or above of energy production. They take up like 100 acres to 800 acres of space. And I understand where people come from when they say, we don't want our farmland or open spaces to be occupied by this or that. But at the same time, if you understand how strained our grid is, how much energy people consume on a daily basis, you realize that we need solar. And so this event was to inform farmers that you can farm and have solar on the same plot of land. If you have a data center on a piece of farmland, which is what a lot of these bigger companies want, you can't do anything else with that land. It's a data center and it will always be a data center. With solar on farmland, Texas is like a prime example. They're doing it all the time. Farmers lease their land to solar developers. and then they're able to farm underneath the solar panels. And so like a lot of my job has been to host events, write pieces, publish social media posts that help farmers understand that you can make money because our farmers are really struggling. We had like over 200 bankruptcies for farmers in the first half of 2025. That number just continues to grow. So it's like all about finding really creative solutions to let other people know why it's so important that we need solar.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah, no, and I love that you are working with all sorts of different groups of people and you learn so much in your job and you have such opportunity to do really different activities every single day, which I feel is neat and maybe a lot of people wouldn't know is involved in your job. So a couple questions to wrap up. First is, what advice would you give to a student who's feeling lost with their major or maybe attending college but isn't quite sure of the direction they should take? Do you think a gap year was useful? Did you think your service year with AmeriCorps helped you kind of figure out those unknowns for yourself?
I would say you have to look at what you like to do. I think too many people fall, and I think this is the whole point of this podcast, is too many people say, oh, my dad or my mom does this, so I'm going to do that. Or you don't know a lot about the careers that are out there. So my suggestion is, if you feel like you're a little lost, really look at who are you as a person? What do you love to do? What are your personality traits? For me, I'm not super outgoing. Like, I like to work remote. I loved having my college be online. That's something that other people could probably say the same. Like, not everyone has to go to a big university. Not everyone needs to be remote. But I think just taking a second to say, okay, what do I really love in my life? And if that is, I need a break and you want to go on a gap year, do it. And there are ways to make it not, I mean, I was a volunteer. Yes, you have to, pay for travel, but you can make things, you can tailor them to what fits best for you financially, for what you need. I mean, online school, that's another pro. It was way cheaper than going in person. It gave me the money and the flexibility to be able to go and do a gap year. So long story short, I would say just really reflect on what you like to do, what lights you up, reflect on yourself as a person, and just find those attributes of yourself that will reflect in your career and go for it in that at that point. And if you need to say, I don't want to do this anymore, then just step away and try to find something else. Don't feel stuck in one specific career. You have your whole life to work. And so you have to do what you like to do.
Yeah. And I've been really proud of you finding your way, just, shifting your major and going in a career direction that really fulfills you. And anyone who speaks to you knows how passionate you are about the future of clean energy in our environment. So all good things, came out of your experiences. And that's kind of the point, is to share these alternative paths for young people so they don't feel like they're so stuck, like they have to follow like a 4-year degree.
And also, like, don't be afraid to do something that, like, you have 9 siblings. We have 80 first cousins. Like, I don't think there's not many in our family that have done the things I've done, and like gone online school and a sustainability major. You just should not be afraid to do something different than the majority of people in your family, because it is a big influence. Like, who you surround yourself by is kind of who you take after. And so it's okay to forge your own path. And, if you take any criticism, then just say you love what you do and just keep going.
Right.
You don't have to agree with everybody.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I will say I learned a lot through your journey as well. And I am much more open to online college than I was, previous to your experience, because I've seen how it has really opened doors for you by enabling you to have the time and the flexibility and freedom to work at the same time.
Yeah. And I mean, I think financially, like, it's a really good option for the individuals who may not want to go, or maybe can't afford to go in person, but also still want to get a degree. I mean, it was significantly cheaper, and your books are included. in your tuition. So, I mean, I feel like my tuition bill was cut by at least half. And so that's another something to think about, that you can save money and then you can also kind of be making money at the same time if you are working while you're in school. So it's just another path to getting a degree if you want one and if you need a little bit more financial assistance.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for your wonderful advice, Lyla. And congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And that wraps up today's conversation with my incredibly talented and hardworking daughter, Lyla Hollis. Here are 3 key takeaways from her story. First, it's okay to pivot. Changing your major or stepping back when something doesn't feel aligned isn't failure. It's self-awareness, and it can open doors you didn't even know existed. Second, real-world experience is a career accelerator. Lyla's gap year and AmeriCorps service year didn't just build skills, they gave her clarity, confidence, and a true competitive edge that helped her land a full-time role even before graduating. And third, your path doesn't need to look like anyone else's. Online school, service programs, hands-on learning, there are so many routes to building a meaningful and sustainable career that fits your unique strengths and talents. So if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to this channel for more career insights and real stories that will help you navigate your own career path. And if you're feeling unsure about your next step, you are not alone. Visit the Get Career Curious website and take my free Career Compass assessment to get moving in the right direction. It's a simple, powerful tool that helps you find alignment, identify your strengths, and discover logical next steps in your career exploration journey. So stay curious, take action, and I'll catch you in the next episode.